Once again, welcome everybody to our video session this morning. You are on mute and will be on mute for the entire duration of the call. The way we have this set up, the program does not allow for any interaction beyond myself and Bruce, our presenter. We do, however, have a Q&A section where you're welcome to ask questions and or make comments. So with that, I'm going to now introduce Bruce Coleman. He is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Sherwood.
Can you hear me?
There we go, Bruce. I think you're live now.
Well, good morning.
All right, say hello, everyone. Bruce Coleman from the City of Sherwood.
Well, good morning. I'm Bruce Coleman, as Corey said, and I want to thank you, Corey, for putting this together. I'm Economic Development Manager for the City of Sherwood, and I'm glad to be here this morning. We want to do everything we can to help the businesses in our community. We realize and we very much appreciate the work that you do as small businesses. You are critical, of course, to the economic well-being of our families and our community. I'm going to be making the presentation this morning. And I just want to mention there's a lot of information out there. A lot of this is also work in progress because every day we learn more information about some of these federal and other programs. So the information I'm going to present is certainly subject to change. But we do have a city website that we've been downloading with new information as we are able to do. So let me talk about what I'm going to talk about, which is the federal resources, state resources, some things about the city, and some other resources that we are aware of. Starting with federal resources, what I'm going to present is the information that we had as of yesterday and the day before. Yesterday afternoon, both Corey and I were able to listen into a conversation that Congresswoman Bonamici had, and she included the SBA Regional Director for the Pacific Northwest, and we learned much more information as a result of that, and I'm going to present some of that verbally to you. So let's go into the meat of this. This is pretty much all based on what's known as the CARES Act, and the CARES Act is, of course, it has a long title, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. It's the new legislation that was signed into law on March 27th. Supposedly the largest federal stimulus program in the history of the U.S., over $2 trillion. It provides for major new small business relief and funding programs, and some of these include some of the key programs with Paycheck Protection. I'm going to talk about that. The Emergency Economic Injury Loan and Grant Funding Program, Small Business Debt Relief Program, business tax credits, and I'm going to talk somewhat on the unemployment insurance expansion, including the additional $600 per week program, and the fact that unemployment insurance now benefits self-employed gig workers and freelancers, which is something very, very major. I'm going to continue here. Just to give you a magnitude of this CARES Act, I don't expect you to be able to read all of this, but it provides a massive amount of funding for individuals and small businesses, as well as big corporations and healthcare and what have you. And I just want to give you an idea of that $2.3 trillion. We do understand that Congress is actively looking at expanding additional financial resources. They're looking at that right now. Right to the Paycheck Protection Program, brand new program known as PPP. It's a cash flow assistance, federally guaranteed loans to employers. And the intent of it is to maintain payrolls and jobs during this crisis. The idea is that the economy will snap back faster if the jobs are still. Anyway, so the idea is to if you maintain the payrolls, the loans would be forgiven. So this is the way the program works is if you're harmed by COVID-19 between those particular dates that are on the screen, you are eligible to apply. It's for small businesses And the SBA defines small businesses a little differently. Those are businesses that are generally 500 employees or less. But this particular program includes sole proprietorships, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals. Really, as we understand it, all small businesses can apply under the PPP program. That no collateral is required, no personal guarantee, according to the information that we have. This slide has obviously some information about the program. I'm going to go into some more details that we didn't have time to add to this slide as a result of yesterday's presentation.
Hey, Bruce.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt for just a second? We're getting some comments that there's a lot of feedback on your end.
Right.
They're not hearing you very well.
So I think where I left off is I was going to talk about franchisees a little bit. I understand that certain kinds of franchisees might be eligible under the program. What I have read, it's hotel and food service operators, but obviously this is all a work in progress. Maximum loan size is 10 million. Lots of eligible uses under this, including payroll costs and the cost of continuing the health care for the workers, employee salaries and commissions, payment of interest on the mortgage, the rent, utilities, employee benefits and retirement benefits, state and local taxes, as well as compensation to sole proprietors and independent contractors. That's our understanding. Then employers can borrow 2.5 times the borrower's average monthly payroll costs. Loans due in 2 years. We've heard different numbers about the interest rate, but what I've heard is 0.5% is the number that I've heard as of last week. The loan applications are not done through the SBA. They're done through lenders, SBA lenders. They're known as SBA 7A lenders, and I'll talk about 7A in a little while. You can apply for other SBA assistance. If you use the PPP, you can apply for other SBA assistance, but you obviously have to use it for different purposes. There can't be any double dipping. There's some provisions that you must have been in business since February 15th. Is that working okay now? Thanks, Mark. February 15th, and you had to have paid your taxes on your employees and independent contractors. None of the salaries can exceed $100,000 that you're working under this program for. Your eligible expenses are really those that are starting on February 15th, and they're through June 30th of 2020. There is loan forgiveness under this program. It applies if you are using it for payroll purposes. If you reduce your payroll by, I think, more than 25%, you're going to have a reduced forgiveness, but you can also rehire employees and still have this program applicable to you if you rehire by June 30th. Let me see. One of the things I wanted to mention is, and many of you may already know this, but April 3rd is the first time you could apply under this program as a small business. If you're a contractor or self-employed, it's April the 10th. Some other points that we've kind of learned through working with or listening to the Congresswoman's office is the SBA knows this program has been very difficult, and there's been a lot of, I'll call it, bugs in the program, and it wasn't, their system wasn't set up for something to be, funds to be allocated this quickly. I understand they have a new portal. I think it was done as of yesterday. They're telling the banks they want the money to get out, that they look at this as a social safety net program. Get the money out. It's 100% guaranteed by the federal government, and they're working right now with the lenders and the U.S. Treasury to help lenders get clarifications on the program. But remember, you're applying through the lenders themselves, not through the SBA. And again, if you're a sole proprietor, you can apply under this particular program. That's something very new under this CARES Act. I think I mentioned before, we understand that there's some concerns out there that this program could run out of money. The answer that was arrived at yesterday was apply anyway. Keep getting your applications in and get them in now for this program. Congress is looking at refunding or providing additional funding for this program. And so it's important that Congress knows that there is a tremendous need out there for this kind of assistance. All right, that's a lot of information about Paycheck Protection. Hopefully you can hear me well enough. I'm going to go into the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. I'll probably just call it EIDL. It is loans for eligible small businesses. It's up to $2 million in loan, lower interest rate. It's fixed at 3.75% for small businesses. The principal and interest is deferred, and that's really an SBA decision. You'd be working with a loan officer at the SBA. You use it to pay for your expenses that can't be covered during this emergency, and that's payroll. It could be working capital, other operating expenses that are considered economic injury. Again, the businesses that are eligible are what the SBA calls small businesses, 500 or fewer, generally corporations, LLCs, sole proprietorships, independent contractors. You can also use it, I forgot to mention, for accounts payable, for fixed debts, and other expenses that you couldn't pay because of the emergency crisis. Okay, so the SBA will determine what your loan amount would be based on your injury, and it cannot exceed that amount. You're going to have to demonstrate that this is a direct result of the disaster. I understand the entire United States is now eligible, but we were working to get Oregon to become a designated disaster area, which happened maybe, I think it was 2 weeks ago. You apply directly to the SBA itself. There's an application form. You don't go through your bank for this. The term is generally 15 to 30 years. It really depends on what you and your loan officer at the SBA talk about and think is your actual need. Again, you do not go to the bank for these loans. You go to the SBA, and I just have a reference here as to how you apply. If you actually go to the City of Sherwood Economic Development website under Business Resources for COVID, you'll see a place where you can apply, but you can also just go to the sba.gov/funding programs disaster website for this information. I'm going to keep going here. A little bit more about economic injury disaster loans. If it's a working capital loan, it can be used to pay, again, for fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills. I know I'm repeating myself, but there's a lot of information that's out there. You cannot use it for any growth of the business or expansion purposes. You have to be able to demonstrate repayment ability. There is some language about collateral. It's our understanding that if it's a greater than $25,000 loan, then you're going to have to provide some collateral. We have been told that the SBA will not decline for lack of collateral. That's actually in the Congressional Research Service publication that I've read. You know, this is a work in progress. I can't promise you that information, but that's how we understand it. Some more here. When you're applying for it, you want to have your federal tax returns in front of you. You want to have your year-end profit and loss, your to-date P&L, your monthly sales figures. What's the disaster? You're going to indicate it's COVID-19, of course. Few other things. When you think of what an economic injury is, it's really businesses can't meet their obligations because of COVID-19. That's, I think, the criteria that has to be considered. We don't know this, but the SBA says their goal is 2 to 3 weeks for a decision. We understand also that depending on whether your application is complete, once you have signed the loan documents, both parties, that the loan, if it's for $25,000 or less, funds in 5 days. Again, that's what they're telling us. We do understand that the SBA can use your credit score basis. So I think there was some other things we heard yesterday that I just want to mention. Supposedly the application will take about 10 to 15 minutes. It's a new application. If you had gone on it about a week ago, or maybe a little longer than a week ago, it was a more complicated application This has become a simpler one. I have a copy of it sort of in front of me. I want to say it's 4 or 5 pages, and there's a new EIDL portal, and if you use the old portal, you may not have been able to sign up for the grant portion, so you may want to go back and use your current loan application number and do it over again and sign up for the grant. I'm going to talk about the grant portion next.
Hey,
so
Bruce,
there is a grant component.
Bruce, can I interject for just a second here?
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that when you are applying for the EIDL loan, you don't need all of that information that you had on that previous slide. It's a very quick application, and they actually ask very little questions. That'll all, I think, come when you're contacted by an SBA loan officer, is when you'll report all of that. So the initial application is very simple, it's very quick. And as Bruce mentioned, we encourage everybody, if you think you need it or want it, go in and apply now. And if you decide you don't need it or want it later, you can always decline later.
Great, thanks, good point. So there is a grant component to the EIDL, and you can get an emergency advance or grant of up to $10,000 for small businesses as you're harmed by COVID-19. And they've indicated that those grants can be, that those funds can come to you within 3 days of applying. So that grant does not need to be repaid. So it's our understanding that what you do is you apply for the EIDL for the loan, and then you request the grant. There's a box you check off, and you ask for the grant funds. That can be used to pay for payroll. It can be used for sick leave, other business obligations, production costs, rent, mortgage, those kinds of things. If you get denied the EIDL, the loan, or if you reject it on your own, it's our understanding that you can still keep the grant amount, and you can still use that grant amount. That's what we have been told by the SBA. The program, and this also applies for sole proprietors and independent contractors. The grant program is now, and it ends December 30th. So please apply. I'm not sure you can really see this. We try to put a comparison between the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Program. Apply for both, and just don't use it for the same purposes. And that's, you can't do that. Okay, next, I want to talk just briefly about the Small Business Debt Relief Program. This is intended to provide immediate relief to small businesses that already have current non-disaster SBA loans, and those could be 7A loans, 504 loans, or what's called microloans. I'm going to talk about some of those programs, 7A and 504, in a few moments briefly. It would cover all the loan payments on these previous loans, these current loans that you have. The principal, interest, and fees for 6 months is to provide relief for you in terms of debt. That's if you have existing. Now, you can be a new borrower under the program under 7A or some of the, so that's okay. We're going to continue here. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the 7A programs. Many of you may already know about the 7A. It's been around for a long time, but I thought I'd spend a moment or two just describing it. That is what I call the workhorse of the SBA. It's what most of the SBA loans are. These are loans for up to $5 million for small businesses. It's the primary SBA program. It's done through lenders or banks, short and long-term working capital, and you can use it for expansion of your business, FF&E, and inventory, and a lot of different things. And the reason the banks are willing to make the loans is they're getting a good guarantee from the SBA, and you apply for these funds through the bank. So anyway, that's just a summary of what a 7A is. There's other programs out there that the SBA has, including the small loans under the 7A that are up to $350,000. There's express loans with a quick turnaround. There's various export loans if you're a manufacturer or a processor and you do some kind of exporting, there's all kinds of export assistance out there. There's microloans that are done through nonprofit lending organizations. I'm going to tell you who some of those are a little later in this area. And then I think of particular importance is something that came up under COVID. We are. It can provide up to $25,000 in bridge loan money through a bank. It's available through March 13th of 2021. And again, you go to an SBA Express lender for that kind of funding. Another program is SBA 504s. These are known as Certified Development Company loans. They're SBA backed. They're easy on the working capital, only requires a 10% match by the business. You go through a certified development company, a CDC, which is a nonprofit organization. We have a list of those, and we can help you connect to those kinds of an organization. And they provide the financing for small businesses working with the banks. Loans are up to $5 million. There's various terms. And these are for fixed assets for expansion of the business. I think of it as really an economic development type loan. Again, that's just a brief summary of SBA 504s. Then I think very important under the CARES Act is the Employee Retention Credit, tax credit. This is new, and it is a credit against the employer's portion of the payroll tax for an eligible business that has to suspend operations or close due to the crisis and has had a significant decrease in revenues. And they're also continuing to pay their employees while not working. So I guess we see the theme here to try to keep employees working as much as possible in this difficult economy. And so this slide talks a little bit more about that. It's available only for wages paid after March 12th. Keep going here. There's other business resources out there. You may already know about a lot of these, but I'll just briefly mention them. These are not financial resources, but there's services out there to help businesses. There's SCORE, which is a national nonprofit. It's an affiliate of the SBA. They call it a partner. You get connected to a mentor in Portland here, in Greater Portland. There's 70 mentors, and you go to their website and you request a mentor. And I've seen this to be a tremendous program where I've worked before, as well as here. Next program I want to mention is the Small Business Development Center, which is the SBDC. Here, Sherwood is served by the PCC Small Business Development Center. It's an SBA funded program. It's also funded by the state. These services, SCORE and SBDC, are free. They've got a capital access team that'll help you with capital strategies. They'll help you develop your funding packages. They also help with export assistance. They'll if you're practicing your recipes at home and you want to take them to market, there's a program called that, Getting Your Recipes to Market, through the Food Innovation Center. There's government contracting, there's cybersecurity. You register with them, and again, we can provide you with all this information separately. It's and how to make these connections. Government contractors, I'm not going to spend much time on that, but if you're a government contractor, Congress under the CARES Act has provided some relief and some assistance. I think you probably have already heard this all in the news. Both the federal government and the state government have extended the deadline for payment of income taxes to July 15th. But I just wanted to make sure you knew about it. That's why I'm mentioning it. Then there's various state business resources out there. The primary one for business is really Business Oregon, which is the state's economic development arm. And they've got programs such as the Oregon Business Development Fund, where they provide direct loans to get private, to what we say leverage private capital for land, buildings, equipment. And there are folks that are looking at those things now. Even though we're in a crisis, there are people who are looking at new construction and new opportunities. Then there's the Oregon Credit Enhancement Program, and I think of that as sort of the state's version of SBA, in a sense, where they help connect small businesses with lenders, and they provide loan guarantees. And then there's other programs out there similar to that. Then the next one is they've got I think 20 programs out there, from export promotion programs to other kinds of financing. And if you're interested, we can always make those contacts. We've got good contacts at Business Oregon. So continue here. I mentioned that there are micro lending programs out there. Each one is different, but the programs here in the greater Portland area are MESO and Craft 3 and Community Lending Works and Mercy Corps Northwest. Again, we're happy to make those. I'm happy to make those contacts. There's angel capital funds out there. If you're a manufacturer, there's the Oregon Manufacturers Extension Partnership, which helps manufacturers with their operations, with processes, food safety, talent development. There's just a lot of really good programs to tap into if and when you're ready for those kinds of things. State Employment Department, that's also obviously very important. Changes under the CARES Act that were signed by the President on the 27th of March. It expands unemployment insurance benefits, adds the $600 per week unemployment insurance. For the first time, freelancers and gig workers and self-employed can apply. When I wrote this, I said the website was still being, at the State Employment Department was still being updated, but I have found some additional things as of yesterday on their website, questions and answers about unemployment insurance. If you go to the city's website that I mentioned before on business resources for COVID, and you scroll down, you'll be able to link up to the employment department of the state and be able to find questions and answers, but I can always help you with that. Let's see what we have next. WorkShare, that's a program that's been in place for a while, I understand, but is certainly being promoted now, and it's an alternative for employers and workers who may be affected by a layoff to actually, for the company to reduce the staff, not to reduce the staff, but to, instead of reducing the staff, for the employer to reduce the hours that are worked, and it's for a group of employees. And so they'll pay less in wages because the workers are working less, but then the employees will be eligible for unemployment insurance, and they can get higher income coming in through a combination of those two than they would if they were purely laid off, obviously, and just had unemployment insurance. A company would apply to employment department of the state by sending in a written plan. Then there's WorkSource, which connects job seekers and employers. I haven't been able to check on this since Friday, but there's a restaurant workers relief program. It's a private program through the National Restaurant Association and their educational foundation, and where there are one-time grants of $500 towards housing and other purposes. I couldn't get on that website when I tried on Friday. It seemed pretty busy, but I don't know if the funds are still there. It's first come, first served, but it's certainly worth checking in this period. So just a few things about the city itself. As I think many of you may know, we created the Small Business Emergency Relief Grant Program, and I'll just very briefly an update. We took in 119 applications, 94 were approved. The grants were in the amount of a little over $2,000, $2,125. We originally had proposed or had created a program for $100,000 of city funds for the program. We did double that amount. We have so far gotten out the door about $119,000. That was as of yesterday. We've probably gotten more out than that. And the idea is just to provide as much relief as we could as people were gearing up for the federal relief and assistance programs. We are staying very active with the governor's office, and each week we have meetings, teleconference meetings with their office, their business solutions team in Greater Portland, which is a regional organization. So we keep abreast as best we can of these programs. We are, I think, emphasizing the importance of small business. The city has a virtual emergency operations center under our chief of police, and it's very unusual to have a business liaison on one of those EOC's emergency operations centers, but I've been appointed as the business liaison to that, which really I think demonstrates the importance of business to our community. Certainly glad to work with you as our entire community development department as business ombudsman and help with city permitting with your applications. We're getting lots of applications, lots of building permits are coming in. And then I would be more than happy to work one-on-one with you to try to make calls and email connections. We're doing a lot of that now, try to help connect you to resources. And then we've also worked to begin creating a volunteer mentoring service. Through the chamber and through the city, we've had some people who've gone through some of this finance training, and they can be brought on as a resource. So anyway, that's what I have to say. I was trying to keep this to about 20 minutes to a half hour, so I think I have exceeded that time a little bit, but that's my contact information. I should have put my email on the screen. I'm going to give it to you right now. It's Coleman, B, COLEMANB at SherwoodOregon.gov. Coleman, B at SherwoodOregon.gov. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Bruce. A lot of good information there. We do have some questions that have been raised during your presentation. So let me back up and go through some of those, and hopefully we can get to all of them. The first question, try and find it here. The first question is, when can nonprofits apply for these programs?
It's my understanding that nonprofits can apply at this time. My understanding is apply now, apply as soon as you can, get your applications in.
Okay, good. The next question is the EIDL grant of $10,000 in addition to CARE, or does it apply towards the loan?
Oh, that's a good question. It's an advance, so I think it probably is whatever the total amount of the loan would be. It's the $10,000 from the loan, but it's never to be paid back. It's always a grant. So again, if you don't get the loan itself, or if you decide you don't want the loan, you get the grant, you can keep the grant and use it for the business. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a pretty good answer there. The next question is,
the SBA loan officer is going to work with you. Remember, the EIDL is through the SBA directly, not through the bank. And so you're going to get an assigned SBA loan officer who's going to work with you. And a lot of these questions are going to be the details you're going to want to work with that loan officer, but you're not going to get there unless you apply.
Okay, the next question is, can sole proprietors and individual contractors apply for the EIDL now, or do they have to wait till April 10th?
It's my understanding that is April the 10th.
So actually, I'm going to interject here. I think the EIDL, they can apply now.
Let me double check that, because there's a lot of, you're right. It's the Paycheck Protection Plan that is April the 10th. There's a lot of information out there. You're right. Apply for the EIDL now. Don't wait.
Correct. Yeah, the Paycheck Protection Program is April 10th for proprietors and individual contractors, but for EIDL, they can apply now.
Right.
Okay, next question. There are concerns that workers will not want to come back to work due to the increased unemployment amounts. What happens if an employer offers work from home, but they decline? Would they lose their unemployment benefits?
I have a detailed question and answer sheet. Let me see if I can find that. I don't know that I can answer that right away. It's like 20 questions on here. You know what we might want to do is encourage you, the questioner, to look at the Employment Department website, the State Employment Department website. I'm not going to pretend to be the expert on all of this. There's a lot of information that's coming out all at one time, but there is a question and answer sheet on there, simply entitled COVID-19 related business layoffs, closures, unemployment insurance benefits, and it's dated April the 3rd. So it's really new information, and they have questions and answers for workers, and I don't think I can find it quickly enough here, but there's questions. You know, for example, I've been asked before, do you have to look for other work if the company you work for temporarily closes? And so they're saying, no, you don't, which is a little unusual under unemployment insurance. So there's a lot of questions and answers. I'm not going to be able to answer all your specific questions, but go to either the Employment Development Department at the state website under COVID-19, or if you want to go to the City of Sherwood website under Business Resources, COVID-19, and scroll down to Employment Department, you'll now be able to access this question and answer form.
Okay, and I think we've got her information too, that the person who was asking the question, so we can address her off camera here as soon as we can help maybe find a more definitive answer for her.
The other possibility is to write an email to us, and we'll also do some research the best we can.
Okay, we had someone who says that they signed up for the EIDL last week on Monday or Tuesday and not heard anything. When should they hear something?
Well, you probably want to, let me ask this question. I know they can't respond, but they don't have any loan number or anything yet, it sounds like? I mean, usually from what I understand, when you apply, you get some kind of response with a loan number. That's what I have been told. I've never been able to get that far because I'm not actually applying. So I would contact the SBA, and I think I don't know if I brought it with me, but I might have the SBA customer service phone number. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. It is 800, this is for the EIDL program. It's 800-659-2955, and that's supposed to be the disaster loan customer service officer. There is a website, and you know, when I've gone to the website, I've simply typed in sba.gov disaster, and I've gotten to it. I don't have the exact language here, but I think I would call the 800-659-2955 number and ask that question of customer service with the EIDL program. That seems to be the place to go.
Okay, thank you. And I think we'll do sort of an FAQ one sheet on a lot of these questions that we can then make available for people to tune in and check out the answers a little bit later. Another question came in. I filled out the EIDL early on, and you said something about filling out a newer form. Are we supposed to hear back from them within 3 days?
You know what, the SBA regional administrator for the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, said yesterday is if you filled out the old form, it's not a bad idea to fill in the new one and submit it again. If you have a loan number, you should put it in there. If you don't, get in your new one. That's how I heard the regional SBA administrator explain it yesterday. And this one is a lot easier, as both Corey and I have indicated, 4 or 5 pages. Just get it in and then stay in contact with them at 800 number. I would just be very proactive. And if you haven't heard anything, I would have thought you would have heard something by now, quite frankly.
Okay, and I will just say that I did actually call last week the SBA hotline, and I was able to get a person immediately and ask my question. So there are a lot of people standing by to try and help. So don't be afraid if you have questions about your own application or your loan and the status, to give them a call and they'll try and walk you through it. Okay, let's see. I think right now that is all the questions that we've had so far. If anyone has any other questions, please type them into the Q&A form on the Teams application. And we've still got a few more minutes. We're happy to hang on. Otherwise, if you feel like you've gotten the information that you wanted or you don't have any other questions, you're welcome to drop off, but Bruce and I will hang on for another few minutes and in case anybody else has any additional questions. Otherwise, thank you for joining us, and we'll have a copy of the recording available as soon as we can, as well as a FAQ about some of the questions that were asked during the presentation.
And if I can add, I don't know if you can still hear me, but feel free to send me an email and I will do my best to either try to get an answer, connect you to someone who can help answer. And it's Coleman, COLEMANB at sherwoodoregon.gov. We really want to be there to help you as much as we can.
And I'll just echo that you're welcome to email me as well, Corey, COREY at sherwoodchamber.org. And I've been through a number of these presentations and can help answer some of the questions. And if I can't, then I can help you get to Bruce. Another question, actually, Bruce, that just popped up as it relates to the increases in unemployment. Is it reasonable to assume that our Oregon unemployment insurance premiums will be higher?
That's a very interesting question, and I don't think it can be answered yet. We had a business, an unnamed business, contact me the other day and asked if what's the impact of all of this on unemployment insurance rates. So I sent an email over to the governor's office, regional solutions team, and she contacted unemployment, and basically they're looking at all of this. That's the only answer I could seem to get at this stage. They're looking at that entire question, and I don't think there's an answer at this point. But it's good. It was good for me to be able to get the governor's regional representative here in the metropolitan area to at least be aware of that concern. I am going to be on a call tomorrow with that group, and I intend to raise that question again so that it's still out there, and so that we can work on getting an answer, because we know that's a concern that I've at least heard from one other business.
Yeah, and I'll just add, in one of the presentations I was listening to, the way that it was sort of presented was that this whole thing is kind of like we're trying to build an airplane and get it off the ground and fly it kind of at the same time while we're building it. And so there's still a lot that's trying to get ironed out, and a lot of these questions we don't have answers to yet. So please be patient, and I know there's a lot of people working really hard to try and find answers and come up with answers. So just we ask for your patience, and hopefully we can get everybody all settled in and we can get out of this thing alive and well. Another question. Let's see. So someone is asking, is there a bailout coming from the feds? I'm not sure what she's referring to there. She also asked, what about the $600 a week from the feds? Does that get added to the Oregon unemployment rate?
Well, I don't think we know the answer about the unemployment rate. This is federal money that's coming from the CARES Act to help fund unemployment. That's how I understand the program. And what's happening, you know, the SBA administrator said yesterday that the SBA is like a tugboat, a little bit like what you were saying, Corey, that's trying to be an aircraft carrier in 3 or 4 days. So the employment department of the state is going through the same thing, the unemployment office of the state. I understand that they're going through massive retraining of their staff to be able to answer these questions. And as I said, there's a new questions and answers sheet, or actually a few pages on the Oregon Department Employment Department website that wasn't there until just the other day. So I don't think we know all those answers at this stage, but I think we are trying to get as many answers as we can for you. But they're just not out there just yet.
Yeah, and someone suggested that maybe we can research a little bit about some of the implications of unemployment insurance and other programs after, like, hurricanes and tornadoes and things that hit in other places. What happened after that? Did rates go up? Or so maybe we can look into that separately and just see if there's any pattern or history that might help us answer some of these questions.
Yeah, and I think one of the differences is some of these programs were already out there for hurricanes, but they've been ramped up. And I think what the SBA said the other day is, yeah, they've had disaster loans for a long time to help Houston and to help Miami when they have their disasters or tornadoes. But this is something a little different. The idea is to get money out there quickly. The economy is in very serious turmoil, and the Congress has been very clear to the SBA, get the money out. And so the process supposedly is going to be a lot quicker than it was during hurricanes in Houston or tornadoes in Texas or whatever. So that's to be seen, but that's what's been made very clear to us.
Okay, and there was a clarification about the bailout question. It was related to the unemployment insurance premium. So I think the question is, will the government essentially make the difference so that our insurance rates don't go up as a result of the increase in the unemployment insurance for those that have been let go?
Yeah, we don't have an answer for that, but I think that's a great question to at least have it as a question, so that as we relate to whether it's the governor's office or some others, we can ask that question. It's good to hear what these questions are so that we're able to express them and try to get answers for you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? We've got just a couple more minutes before our hour is up. Okay, well, I think at this point, nobody's ever complained about a meeting ending early, so I think we'll go ahead and conclude our session today. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and for your questions. And as mentioned before, we'll get the recording up as soon as we can, as well as one sheet of FAQs that were asked during the presentation. And if you have anything that comes up after we're done, any other clarifications you want to make or questions or comments, again, feel free to reach out to Bruce or to myself via email, or you're welcome to call, and we'll try and work with you on finding answers for all of those. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy your day and have a good week, and we will be in touch.
Thank you.